Hello and welcome to the Twilight European Network. This morning we're here with the Emma Murtagh, who is the European Programmes Manager for the Wheel. Emma, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Emma, sometimes when we have like a title like that, the European Programmes Manager, people forget that there's a person behind the title. Would you like to just tell us a little bit about Emma Murtagh?
Yeah, of course. A little bit about me. So as you said, my name is Emma. I'm from Longford originally. I moved to Galway at 18 for college and I lived there for 10 years and actually moved home to Longford just before the pandemic. And yeah, I live there with my partner and my 2 cats. and it's great because I can work remotely I work for the Wheel. So as you said, I can work remotely for them. So it's nice for me to be able to be kind of close to family and friends at home. And yeah, so that's
especially this time, isn't it?
No, it's definitely made a huge difference during the pandemic. We're very lucky that we moved home just in time. So it's great. There's a lovely sense of community there. So it's great to be there and be able to enjoy that.
This is not your first position with the Wheel. Before that, you were the officer or manager. Can you explain the difference between the 2 roles?
Yeah, so basically there's just a few different kind of tiers in the infrastructure of the organisation. So when I first joined the Wheel, I was European Programmes Officer. So I suppose I was a little bit newer and greener and still kind of learning the ropes. So after a couple of years, I went off travelling for a little while as well, came back to the Wheel, took a different title for a while. I worked in a grants kind of business development position, but then the position of European Programmes Manager came up again and I applied for it and I got it. So I'd gained enough experience to kind of move up a notch basically to manager at that point.
Excellent. Now the Wheel and Access Europe, it's a very important function they provide. Would you just give us a little bit of a background on what they actually do for people that might not be aware of it?
Yeah, so the Wheel is Ireland's national representative body for the non-profit and charity sector and for communities. So we were founded in 1999. There was a recognition that there wasn't enough kind of cohesive working together and wraparound supports to help charities, help community groups to be more effective and to focus on what they do best so that they get support in running their organisations. So that's where the Wheel came from. And over the last 22, 23 years now, we've grown enormously and we provide a range of supports. So it's everything from very practical training and advice to kind of policy and advocacy work. So we advocate on behalf of the sector to government and at EU level, of course, as well. And then I suppose all kinds of kind of resources, events, opportunities to network, opportunities to learn. So that's our role. And from that, a few years ago, it was recognised, it was actually our Director of Development that recognised that Ireland really wasn't doing enough in European programmes. The civil sector, the non-profit sector wasn't doing enough in European programmes. And there was huge opportunities that were being missed there. And we have sister organisations around the UK, in each of the countries in the UK that kind of fulfil a similar role. And many of them had European programmes set up. So I think it was a little bit of jealousy maybe and a little bit of looking at what they had and thinking, oh, we could do that. So that's what kind of sparked the development of our European programmes. And it's grown hugely. So it started as one person. Now there's 3 of us, and we run a support service called Access Europe. So the whole point of this service is to enable and support Irish organisations. So it includes non-profit organisations, but also includes like public authorities and academia and basically everybody that could benefit from EU funding in kind of for social projects. We support them to access and manage their funding. So usually it is kind of non-profit groups that need most of the support, but we tend to kind of do a lot of work kind of bringing people together, supporting applications and supporting projects.
Okay, well, say that, I mean, the Twilight Community Group, we do a lot of work with you, and I have to say the service you get is excellent. Mm-hmm. But if I was new to the programme, and I just happened to come across the Wheel website and the European website, what kind of what way could I get involved? What's the steps?
Well, I would always say to certainly join the Wheel. If you're a small organisation, it's done according to income band. So if you're a small organisation, it's free to join. It just means you can kind of keep in the loop about a lot of our trainings or events that we offer every year are free of charge. So it's a nice way to kind of keep in the loop about what's going on in the sector, to kind of keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening, what kind of big issues are coming up that might impact you, and then also access that kind of training training, advice, support kind of thing. So I would say in the first instance, reach out to our membership officer and chat about membership and to see what value you can get out of the wheel. Access Europe is open to anybody. You don't have to be a member of the wheel to join Access Europe, but it just means kind of you can sign up to our newsletter. That means that you will get, we research all of the EU funding calls that are available to civil society, to the non-profit sector every month, and compile them into a nice handy newsletter. So even just that can be hugely beneficial because it means you can scan them, see if there's anything out there for you. So that's a huge amount of research that, rather than every individual organisation doing that by themselves, the wheel does that, and we kind of disseminate the knowledge and the information that we found. But then you can also reach out to us and just have a chat about what is it you want to achieve through European funding, what do you have in mind. A lot of the time it's us kind of explaining to them that that's actually not what European funding is for, and that really they need to think of it a different way kind of thing. So, but even that, it saves them a lot of hassle. But we can kind of help you to plan what it is you want to do. So we often kind of break it down into what would you like to achieve in 2 years, what would you like to achieve in 5 years, and then 10 years. And that way you kind of have a development plan for your organisation. We can also help with things like partnership building. We do application review. We do a lot of trainings, that kind of thing. So
yeah, I mean, just from a personal point of view, you just mentioned earlier there about application review. Okay, when someone is filling in an application, as I say, we're very interested in the new communities and stuff like that. Can you help them with the application and say, this question, what they're really, really looking for is X or Y?
Yeah, I mean, we have to be, I suppose, reasonable. There is only 3 of us, so we don't want to be of a deluge of applications. But given enough time and enough notice and everything, of course, we're more than happy to look over applications. And I think what we always say is we're never an expert on the topic. If it's new communities, for example, they're experts on what they need, what their project idea is, their target groups. We don't pretend to know about that, but we do know about, I suppose, how to write a good grant. And it's a lot of the project isn't just the idea. Like, the idea is one thing, but ideas are kind of a dime a dozen. It's whether you can convince the funder that you have the capacity and the expertise and, I suppose, the efficiency to actually run the project and to deliver it. So a lot of the time when we're reviewing projects, that's what we're looking at. The idea is usually solid, it's usually fine, might need a little bit of tweaking or whatever, but it's kind of all the kind of project management, the quality, the impact, all of that kind of stuff that if you're not a professional grant writer, it can be, it takes a while to learn how to do that. So we can help with that. So we help to see, well, this is what the funder might want to see. So that's really our role, is to provide that kind of wraparound support rather than, telling organisations what types of projects they're supposed to be doing. That's not what we're in the business of.
You just mentioned something there that actually a few other people mentioned about. You mentioned a professional grant writer. Yeah. Have we many of them across the country?
There are services, yeah. I mean, I think there are a few different services that, and some organisations do. I mean, for the wheel, I was briefly grants officer in between being European Programmes officer and being European Programmes manager. So I think it is a few lucky organisations that really have the capacity or the opportunity to hire dedicated grant support. And it's a hard job because it's all make or break on success. And
you don't get paid if you don't get the program, you don't get paid.
Well, it depends. Yeah, if you're employed versus freelance, obviously. Yeah. But so it's a few organisations are lucky to do that. But having said that, for most organisations, for the vast majority of organisations, you don't need to be a professional grant writer. It's a skill you can learn with practice and with time. I never did a grant writing course or anything like that. I just wrote a lot of applications, and you do kind of develop it over time. Obviously, if you're a bit of a natural writer and you're good with words, of course it's going to come a little bit easier to you, but it's by no means a requirement. There's plenty of very strong grant writers who wouldn't consider themselves wordsmiths or anything like that.
If someone hasn't got personal ownership of the program, will their idea get lost in the context, if you know what I mean? If you have someone that's outside organisation writing it, they're missing the feeling that a group would have to put into it.
Yeah, so I think that's 100%. I think there's always a risk of that. And like personally, in a former life when I was managing European projects, I had managed a project that was written by a project writer, and they want to get it funded, so they're going to put in some very ambitious targets but it is then they disappear, and then it's the group that's left to actually deliver on that, which can be really difficult. So we would always just caution people, absolutely, there's there's probably some excellent freelancers out there that will work very closely with your organisation and will help you to develop your idea and make sure that it's realistic and deliverable and all that kind of stuff. But we would just always caution that, make sure that anytime you engage in any kind of a project or write any kind of a grant, it should always be very closely aligned to your strategic objectives of your organisation, and only you can really decide that and ensure that. And all of the things that you promise, all the kind of KPIs that you promise, should be realistic and achievable. So a lot of what we do, I think, because the Wheel is a charity, and we know that, and we're not a private company and we're not for profit. So I think that's the value of having us kind of lead this and support this service, because we want to make sure not only that charities get money, that's the first step, but it's about making sure that the projects that they get are impactful and sustainable and have a meaningful impact on their organisation. Otherwise, it's just cash that's not really having any kind of real impact on communities. So I think that's why there's a real value in this service being led by a charity, because we understand it and we know that it's about the social impact. It's not about just getting cash in, that kind of thing. So we can help organisations with that.
I think that's a very important point, we should re-emphasise that the fact that you're a charity, you have the same ethos as the people who are applying, so then it's you're in a proper position to advise and to assist, because you know what a charity is looking for. Now, Communicating Europe, we're talking to all the different groups, we've spoke to a lot of people, and one of the things that we've been looking at is that we have a large new communities. A lot of people now have moved into Ireland, and number one, how do we get them involved? And if some of them are watching this programme, would you recommend them to go and talk to an NGO and see what it's like?
100%. I think that, NGOs fill the gaps in communities. And at the moment, there are gaps for migrants, for refugees, for new communities living in Ireland. There is no one-stop shop where you learn, how do you live in Ireland? How does all of this stuff work? How do you meet friends? All of that. There's the logistics of, getting your bank account and getting a house and having somewhere to live and everything. But then there's also that very important well-being aspect of it and feeling part of the community. And that's, I think, what charities, community groups, NGOs provide that nobody else does. It's a welcoming, warm place. It's person-centred. It's based on actual needs, not surveys and census data or anything like that. And the great thing about charities and community groups is they can respond. They can identify that a specific group in our community are really isolated, or they're not getting involved, or they maybe don't have the same opportunities. Let's apply for a project, or start a new programme, or start an initiative to address that. Whereas and that's something that charities and community groups can do quite quickly and quite easily. Whereas if that was, for example, a state body, that could take months, it could take years, whether it be effective, that kind of thing. And it's just because NGOs and charities have that kind of luxury of agility and responsiveness that a lot of other sectors don't. But that's what's great. It's community led. It's based on real needs. It's responsive to those needs, and it puts the person at the centre. They don't treat them like that they're a problem that needs to be solved. So I think that's what's really wonderful about the sector. So I would really urge for any person from a new community coming to Ireland to reach out, to get involved. Volunteering is a really excellent way to meet nice people that want to meet people and that are active in their communities, and to find out about everything from the logistics, but also how to make friends, how to meet new people, how to feel part of your new community. So I think it's essential. I think that they're that missing piece that without that, I think Ireland would feel like a very kind of lonely place that doesn't centre people at the heart of things. So,
as you're probably aware that where you are today is part of the Twilight Community Group, and it's part of our International Cultural House. Yeah. Okay, now the concept behind that is it's a safe space for all communities to come. They can practice their heritage, their history, their culture, and we provide that service for them. Okay, and it's like what you mentioned, a one-stop shop. From your experience, do you think that is a good idea that could be replicated throughout the country?
100%, yeah. I think that, you know, we talk a lot about communities kind of integrating into Irish culture, and like that, you know, it's all about integration and assimilation. But I think that's a tremendously huge opportunity wasted. You know, it's also about complementarity and about bringing, like, you know, it's not just about making these communities more Irish. We want them to bring their own culture and to be able to learn from them and benefit from them. They're huge. It's a huge addition. Like, even coming from, I mentioned I was from Longford. Like, Longford's a very rural area and it suffers a lot from people leaving, basically. Like, without migrant groups, the whole county would be empty. Do you know, it wouldn't be nearly as kind of vibrant and as diverse as it is. So they're a huge value add. They bring massive value to communities, not just economically, although of course they do economically because they work and pay taxes and contribute, but it's also through their culture and through you know, just their knowledge and experiences and all that they have to share with communities. So we'd be missing out tremendously if we were focused just on, you know, slotting them into Irish life and continuing. There has to be a space where they can come together and share with us, you know, their cultures, their ideas, and their experiences, and we can equally kind of share back. And I think that's what, you know, in Ireland, immigration is relatively new. Like, we don't have this generations long history of migration to Ireland. So in a way we have a blank slate here, and we can do some really wonderful things with that. So I think something like this International House, it's a wonderful opportunity to do that. Like, why not bring together all these people, celebrate it, make it into something really positive. So I think it would be wonderful if every community in Ireland had something like that.
Yeah, and I think include the Irish community, bring them in as well. Let them have access to it as well.
Yeah.
Emma, what you as you say yourself, you've been in the sector for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm sure after talking to you today, there's probably somebody at home or someone's knocking at the desk and they're going to say, you know, I'd like to do that job. Mm-hmm. How would they do it?
Well, there's no straight road, I don't think, into, but I think that's across the whole sector. It's not like you go to college to work in a charity or to work at an NGO. There's a few courses, maybe, some of the social sciences, and I think now there's emerging kind of community development courses, but they're quite new. Like, you know, I studied arts, I did my undergrad and master's in arts, and I really wasn't involved in European programmes at all. Like, I didn't even go on an Erasmus, none of it, until I kind of stumbled into an internship with a charity, decided, right, I love charities, I want to work in the charity NGO sector, this is what I'm meant to do. Took the very first internship I could find. It was a job bridge internship back in sometime during the recession, and took the very first one I could find, and it just happened to be an NGO that had a lot of European projects, and through them I managed multiple projects, I wrote a lot of projects and gained that experience. So that's not maybe the most direct way about going into it, but if you're interested in European programmes, and especially if you're a young person or if you're a student or anything like that, I would say get involved in anything. There's so many opportunities. Go on Erasmus year. I wish I could go back and tell myself to do that. When you're in school, like, even get involved, loads of youth groups, do Erasmus exchanges, loads of community groups, do town twinning, like that kind of thing. Get really involved and make connections and get the benefits of European programmes for yourself. And that means that when, you know, opportunities come up, if you want to work in the NGO sector, for one thing, you could decide to write your own European project at that time, and then you could reach out to me at Access Europe and I'll help you. So you could introduce European programmes to your organisation, but it just means that when you're involved in NGOs, you kind of have that benefit of that experience, and you're a bit Europeanised, and you understand a little bit about the system. And then, you know, as I said, it usually starts that you kind of assist on a few projects, then maybe you manage a few projects, and then, you know, before you know it, you're writing them and then telling other people how to write them. So that's it's a roundabout. There's no direct route, but I would say I would urge everybody. We do a program called EPAS, the European Parliament Ambassador School Program, which works with transition years. And every time I'm talking to them, I'm like, you know, look up what is Europe doing for young people or for people who are in education or whatever it is, and just embrace every single opportunity. You know, if you hear about a local community group that are involved in European projects, reach out and learn and you know, go on the trips and meet all the people and stuff. It's so rewarding. And it's hard to, you know, it's not just, I mean, you know, because you've done it, it's not just the trips, it's such an amazing learning experience, and it's really enriching. So I would say start with that and see where it leads you.
Emma, you really enjoy it, don't you?
Oh, I love it. Yeah. There's been many a great trip, and there's, you meet so many wonderful people, and I really believe in it. I read that there's huge value in it. And I've seen how it can transform organisations. Twilight would be an example of that, 100%. So when it's done right. So I feel very passionately about it, but I like to see it done right. And that's, I think, what's wonderful about Access Europe is we can help that. Because, you see organisations who kind of maybe throw themselves into the deep end and don't have such a positive experience. So we want to try and prevent that, help people ease into it, help people get the most value out of it and really enjoy and benefit from the experience of it.
Emma, as always, it's very interesting talking to you. You're a bundle of information, okay? I know we rely on you an awful lot. And that was Emma Murtagh. She's the European Programmes Manager for The Wheel and also now Access Europe. Hope you enjoyed listening to Emma, and we look forward to talking to you again very soon on the Twilight European Network. Thank you very much.